Welcome to Talk with the Nation, presented by the Premier, the Honorable McKeeva Bush. Join the Premier and other special guests as we look at all things Cayman, both present and future. This is Talk with the Nation. Here is Donna Bush.
Good evening, Cayman, and welcome to Talk with the Nation. Premier Mr. McKeeva Bush will be joining us later during this 2-hour program. Mr. Bush is currently at the Legislative Assembly in Finance Committee discussing the Cayman Islands budget. Very important thing there. But he will be joining us for sure. Now, I just want to mention a few things before I introduce our other guests this evening. First, this is a live call-in show, so we will be taking your calls later in the show. The number to call there is 946-9898. That's 946-9898. You can also send us your comments or questions via Twitter at TWTNKY. And if you'd like to join the chat, you can do that at hashtag, or you can go on Facebook at facebook.com/vibe. Also, you can like our facebook.com/Talk with the Nation and be one of the first people to send us your comments or questions. Now, this show is all about positivity, folks. The Premier and Vibe 98.9 are aiming to make sure you, the listeners, have all the facts and all the right things that are happening here in the Cayman Islands. As well, it's your chance to talk directly to the Premier and give him your feedback, comments, and suggestions. As well, you'll be able to ask him questions that you're longing to ask him. The Premier, again, will be telling you more about his reasons for having this program when he joins us later on Talk with the Nation. Now, this evening, we'll be bringing you some insight on our tourism industry and all the good things that are happening there. As well, we will hear more about the Nation Building Fund and the budget. All right, now to introduce our guests who are with us in the studio for the first Talk to the Nation show here on Vibe 98.9. We have Director of Tourism, Shomari Scott. I'd like to take a moment and say congratulations to Shomari on his recent appointment, and President of the Cayman Islands Tourism Association, Mr. Harry Lalli. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and for being here with us this evening. Mr. Scott, let's begin with you. The global recession, as you know, has left a lot of tourism industries in the region struggling. And we've had our share of challenges as well over the last couple of years. But we're doing fairly well considering all things. Actually, our tourism industry is on the upswing. What has been part of the plan that's really brought us up to the top here?
And good afternoon, Donna, and it's great to be here in studio, and as well as in the evening. Usually I have to wake up very early to get on the radio to speak to persons, so it's great to be here in the afternoon as well. I'm fully awake and raring to go. The question that you've asked is a very good question in regards to the fact that we call it the financial tsunami that happened in 2008 that turned the world more or less upside down. Consumer confidence was actually at all-time lows in regards to general purchases, and of course it impact leisure travel as well, because a lot of times that's seen as discretionary spend, that if you're going to pull back and have savings, then you cut your actual travel budget, personal travel budget first, in order to keep those nest eggs, as some persons would actually call it. So back in late 2009, early 2010, understanding that, one, we had a little bit of a budget issue back then as well, where we were needing, as a government in its totality, to reduce budgets, but also understanding that 2009 didn't do as well as we would have wanted it to do from a stay over visitation standpoint. The Department of Tourism more or less had to have a conversation internally that says, why are we here? So we actually looked at that question, why we're here, developed 6 strategic objectives that we probably will go in a little bit later this afternoon. And from the 6 strategic objectives, outline the projects behind those objectives that would give us the most return on investment, and then understanding if for strategic objective number 1, which at that time would have been to achieve 300,000 air arrival visitors, we may have 50 different projects that would help us to actually accomplish, but the budget to only really do 15 of that 50. So we looked at 15 projects, and we did that across our strategic objectives, then took it to the Premier and our Minister and Ministry and said, okay, we understand that there are all these other projects that historically we would have done, but with a limited budget, we can only do the top 15. This is what we recommend. These are the results we'll get from it, but understand that we can't do 16 through 50.
Correct.
And of course, there were some tough decisions. The ministry and the minister, being the premier, actually agreed with the majority, if not all, of the projects we put forward, and said we understand that it's a different and tough time, and you have to make some tough decisions. And through doing that type of streamlining and bottom-up budget building and looking from the ground up in regards to strategic objectives, we were able to say, okay, let's move forward and go down this avenue. So I'll just give you an example of a few things that we did that definitely helped, even though it's quite extensive. A lot of research was done into our number one source market, which is the U.S. 80% of our visitors come from the U.S.
Right.
5% from Canada and 5% from the UK, Europe. So you can see that US is a sizable amount of the business. And we understood that even though the household income of our visitor is pretty high as compared to the rest of the Caribbean, the one thing that they were looking for was value.
For money.
Value for money. So even though they actually make more than persons who potentially travel to other Caribbean countries, they're still looking for value. So there was a statement that came out that says, charge me twice the price for 3 times the value.
Okay.
All right? And they're okay with twice the price once they get 3 times the value. So in doing so, we realized that we had, at that time, only 2 destination promotions in any given year.
Right.
And that's when we worked with the private sector and Mr. Lalli and his group to put forward promotions that gives the value-added types of elements to what we're putting into the marketplace. So we went from 2 to 11 that year. So it takes a lot of work to do too.
Yeah,
imagine that we
11.
increased
That's
it to 11. We also looked at the fact that during we have peaks and gullies in tourism. So during the times when we're having those troughs or the gullies and visitation isn't where it wants to be, we strategically worked with the private sector in order to put on events, whether it's sporting events, whether that's a squash tournament, beach volleyball tournament, marathons, Legends tennis tournaments to
so
make
that's a
sure
sports tourism market that you're getting to there as well.
That's correct. And then you're able to not only get the brand awareness out of it, not only get the PR legs out of it, but you're able to bring visitors here during the off-peak to help to level out that tourism arrival in any given year. So those are just 2 examples of things we've employed at that point in time in order to try and help us to be as successful as possible 2010 and 2011 going into 2012.
Now I know that I've noticed and I've read some information on this myself that you guys have been aggressively really working with your partners, and one of those partners is Cayman Airways, the national flag carrier. What's happening there? You've got some new routes online this year alone. There was Dallas and Panama. What's happening there with those? And are those the long-term benefits will show? Certainly, I think everything's always slow getting started. But how are those routes going at this point?
Okay, and when it comes to airlift, that's another component where you're looking at visitation and trying to increase your visitation. Right. After you drum up the demand, the next best way of getting an increase in visitors is to make sure that you have the airlift from those areas that are actually showing the propensity to travel to the Caribbean and or to the Cayman Islands. So I'll get to Cayman Airways because they're an important partner, but we've also worked with other airlines. For instance, WestJet Airlines came to the Cayman Islands in 2010, and we actually had the best year ever for visitors from Canada in 2010, and actually increased that number by 30%. So we broke the best year ever from 2010 in 2011 by 30%. And going into this year, it's a little bit down. However, the fact that we broke the record by 30%, even though it's down 5%, it's still 25% better than the next best year in history from Canada. We also have direct lift from United from DC DC, which is another top destination for us from New York. We also have Delta that started new service out of JFK. We also have other airlines that have been looking at the Cayman Islands, and through working, for instance, with JetBlue, working on JetBlue over the past 3 years. This year, we're going to have new service out of Boston, which is another top 8 in regards to visitor arrivals to the Cayman Islands, as well as New York, which is our number one city for arrivals into the Cayman Islands, which of course Cayman Airways also flies from there. But now we're going to get JetBlue, which is a brand in and of itself that drives traffic, because there are some persons who just won't travel to any destination that JetBlue doesn't actually travel to. Plus it helps with different connections, pricing, and it makes for a good added benefit of airlift. So that being said, Cayman Airways is also strategically important in that it flies to Chicago, which is another top source market for the destination. It flies into New York, as stated previously, Tampa and Miami, as well as Dallas has been the number 8 city in regards to visitor arrivals over the past 2 years, and it used to be outside of the top 10, and after the recession, it actually started growing more and more, and actually proportionally was growing more than other areas out of the U.S. And there was a lot of latent demand there that we knew that if they actually could get some direct lift, we would start to see those numbers increase. So it's a great thing that we've working with Cayman Airways to make that flight successful, and we're actually able to see the benefits in the shorter term from Dallas. You asked about Panama. That's more of a long-term type of medium to long-term strategy, in that Latin America, and there are places such as Sao Paulo out of Brazil and Buenos Aires out of Argentina that we're targeting, and we have advertising there overtly for the first time. They have absolutely no clue where the Cayman Islands is and what we have to offer. So we're encouraging them to understand that we can offer a great vacation destination, and we've done the research to see that they have the demographic that matches up, that will be able to travel here and have a great time. And Panama is the gateway to South America, so that flight just makes sense, especially a seasonal flight to start off, because a lot of people aren't aware that the summer here is actually the winter season in Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires. So we have a seasonal service that brings winter traffic from those markets here during our summer season, when we have a little bit of a trough that we're trying to raise the visitor arrivals during that time.
Well, that's exciting news to even imagine that, we could be traveling to those destinations, in the very near future, and likewise, visitors coming from there. Now, we talked a little bit about the air arrivals and so forth, and the numbers have actually, I think the last statistics we got were in June. Year to date, the numbers have increased, and you only have to walk down 7 Mile Beach and you can see that, there are more people walking on the sidewalks. Now, Cayman has traditionally been considered, and I think we've really tried marketing to families more than anything else. What are we doing to really up the ante on the family, becoming a family destination and remaining so?
And this is where it's vitally important to have the private sector involved and understanding and having a stake in what we're doing from a marketing perspective, as well as the communication that we're putting across. Because the Department of Tourism, we talk about the 4 Ps, whether it's price, promotion, place, which is distribution or product. We really only control more or less the promotion. So in regards to the product of what's being offered, that's why it's important for us to have a great relationship with the private sector, so they can continue to offer the types of product that actually would resonate with our visitors. So we are one of the top family destinations in the Caribbean. So one, we're getting that actual communication out there in regards that you can come here and you're going to have a safe vacation destination. And we don't overtly say safe, but persons who have come here and have experienced it say that they feel safe, and with that peace of mind, then of course the word of mouth spreads and persons understand that Cayman Islands is a great destination. And yes, we have great infrastructure and great restaurants and great hotels, but it's also the safety component that's paramount. So, of course, you carry your kids to have an unbelievable experience swimming with stingrays. You can go horseback riding. You can visit a turtle farm. You can do many family-friendly activities, but the number one thing our actual visitors tell us that differentiates us from the rest of the Caribbean has to do with the quality of the infrastructure. Safety is definitely paramount, and they also mention the cleanliness as another feature that helps them to decide that they want to come to Cayman versus another destination.
All right, we're going to stick a pin there. We're going to take a break. Talk with the Nation. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Get more talk time for less with Digicel's My Cayman plan. Call any Cayman number or fixed line for one low rate of 20 cents per minute, or any Digicel regional number for the same 20 cents rate at any time of the day. What more can you ask for? Sign up for Digicel's My Cayman plan and call any Cayman number or Digicel regional number any time of the day at one low rate of only 20 cents per minute. Talk more for less. Dial *141 number sign and get the best rate on the island. Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network. Offer valid for prepaid customers only. Terms and conditions apply.
Win big with JN Money Transfer.
Love just in our heart, in our heart. Love with sweet Jamaica, in our heart, in our heart. 50 and getting stronger. JN Money Transfer, them me check for. Them make me collect money from all over. Keep me family and my friends them closer. Quick way for send money back to Jamaica.
Top 50 senders will win $500 cash. Plus, we'll donate 100,000 Jamaican dollars to 2 Jamaican charities selected by 2 winners.
Jamaica, you know we are, you know we are. 50 and getting stronger.
Top 10 receivers in Jamaica will win flat screen TVs, iPhones, and Blackberries.
I love my JN Money Transfer.
Celebrate Jamaica 50 and win with JN Money Transfer. Promotion ends September 30th. Conditions apply. Follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook.
I love JN Money Transfer. Call 345-945-2014. Conditions apply.
Who's the leader in savings?
It's faster. Today through Wednesday, August 29th. 6.4-ounce extra fresh or original Aquafresh toothpaste, $1.99 each. 6-ounce 10, 15, 30, or 50 SPF Coppertone sprays, $9.99 each. And don't forget, fill out your form and drop it in the box provided for a chance to win in Foster's 48 Days of Sizzling Summer. Only a few days left of great prizes. Plus, at the end of the 6 days, all entries will be compiled and 3 people could win $5,000, $10,000, or $25,000. Just purchase the participating product of the day and you could be a winner. See press, in-store, and Facebook for more details.
At Foster's Food Fair, IG every care.
Want to get it right when it comes to back-to-school supplies? Come to Funky Tangs on Shedden Road or in Savannah and get your school supplies from the store that's been supplying school kids for over 40 years. From rulers to notepads, crayons, blue pens, and index cards, Funky Tangs has it all. Scissors, staplers, Sharpies, and subject books. They even have stationery tape. Funky Tangs even carries glow highlighters, colored markers, correction fluid, and hand sanitizer. All available at Funky Tangs and just in time for back to school.
All things Cayman, present and future. This is Talk with the Nation with Donna Bush on Vibe FM, presented by the Premier, the Honorable McKeeva Bush.
All right, welcome back to Talk with the Nation. This is a live call-in show, folks. We'll be taking your calls later on in the show as the Honorable Premier, Mr. McKeeva Bush, will be joining us a little later on. Right now, he's at the LA trying to deal with the business of the country at Finance Committee. Again, if you want to make a call to us later on, that number to call is 946-9898. You can also join us via Twitter or Facebook as well. That's facebook.com/VibeFM. Or you can like our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/TalkWithTheNation. Twitter us at TWTNKY. Welcome back. As we said before we left, we were talking to our guest in the studio, Director of the Department of Tourism, Mr. Shomari Scott, and the President of the Cayman Islands Tourism Association, Mr. Harry Lalli. They're here with us in the studio to talk about all the things good about our tourism industry here in the Cayman Islands. Again, this show is all about positivity and keeping you informed and educated about the right things and about the facts. All right, gentlemen, welcome back again. Mr. Lalli, let's start off this segment with you. Mr. Shomari Scott was talking about the private sector and the fact that DOT would not be able to do all that it does without the support of the private sector. Now, your nonprofit organization is the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. You have over some 200 members involved with CETA, from accommodations, hotels, condos, villas, restaurants, and attractions, so forth. Talk about a little bit about your association as well, for those who out there who are listening and may not know exactly what CETA represents, as well as to give some insight in exactly the relationship between your organization and the Department of Tourism as it is in tourism.
Okay, yeah. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Yes, CETA, we're basically represent most of the businesses in the tourism industry, as you mentioned, from hotels, accommodation, restaurants, water sports, and our allied members.
Right.
One of our main jobs is, of course, we lobby with government to work with them to make sure that we're getting what our members are needing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that we have done lately, and like I said, what Shomari had said, we have to work together. Especially the tourism partners in services, product, and marketing, and this is a team effort. That's a success by the private and public sectors working together. Mm-hmm. Now, just to mention a few things that we've accomplished last year with, DOT, marketing, and the private sector, making sure that when the visitors arrive, we give them a fantastic experience. For mm-hmm. TripAdvisor, Cayman Islands was the #1 destination in the Caribbean and Mexico. Cayman Islands in the top 25 best destinations in the world. Cayman Islands is also in the top 10 best beaches in the Caribbean and Mexico. And the Cayman Islands in the top 10 best family vacations in the Caribbean and Mexico. These are all great awards.
Speaks for itself.
Yes.
Really speaks for itself. And I mean, it's literally unheard of in a lot of destinations as well. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And, that's, again, working together with the private sector, because DOT, we have meetings all the time. A marketing committee sits down with them. They'll say, hey, listen, we're going to do a promotion for the next quarter or the summer splash or whatever promotions that we do. Mm-hmm. Then DOT will take the offer that the private sector comes up with and let the world know about it.
Right. So. Now, I know, we talk about our visitors and tourists to our islands, but as a Caymanian, as a local, I'd like to address one particular program that's in place that I think is absolutely wonderful, that helps us Caymanians experience our own islands, and that's the staycation. Let's talk about the success of that program.
Yeah, staycation has been absolutely fantastic, because what it does is staycation is put in the summer months when most of the hotels and condos have a slower period.
Right.
So, and what it does is it increases their revenue, from local people. They don't actually have to get on a plane to come here. And it has been absolutely fantastic. Even the villas said they get great numbers, properties out in East End, mm-hmm. Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. In fact, I think my vacation this year, I went to Little Cayman and Cayman Brac as a staycation, and it was fantastic.
How are your members? I'm sure you get feedback and comments from your members on a regular basis. How are they feeling about Cayman's tourism market as it stands today compared to, let's say, 2 years or 3 years back?
I think the membership is feeling a lot better because, like Shomari said, we've managed to increase the numbers every year.
Right.
This year I think we're already surpassing last year's numbers at this stage. So I think, and we had probably one of the best summers. So tourism-wise, a lot of the people in the tourism industry were very happy, especially, you normally feel a dip in May, June, July, but this year that didn't exist.
Wow.
That kept us going, and luckily there's been no storms that have had a direct impact, which usually
helps.
First storm might have like knocks the wind out of our sails.
Right.
So touch wood that we won't have any of those. So we've gone all the way to September, which is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're quite happy, and I think the talking to the hotels, the major hotels, they've shown some incredible occupancies this year.
Right. That's great. Mr. Scott, I'm moving back to you. traditionally, we've seen everything from the national flag carrier to the hotels. Caymanians are usually on the front lines and so forth. And I know that's something that the department is striving to achieve once again. I don't know if it was a generational thing where, a generation of people actually stopped working in the hospitality industry after places like the Holiday Inn and those places were replaced. And now we're trying to recoup and get back into the swing of things as far as our young Caymanians are concerned and getting them interested in the hospitality industry. That said, is there anything that the department or the country is doing on a whole to really address putting programs in place to encourage our young people to get more involved in hospitality?
And that's once again, Donna, that's an absolutely great question that you've raised. Before I go into that one, just I want to touch on what Harry stated, just so that we can get it out there so people can understand what's happening from a stay-over-visitor standpoint.
Right.
2010, we were actually up 6% over 2009, and one of 3 Caribbean countries to be more than 5% greater than the year before. Mm-hmm. And in 2011, we were actually up 7% over 2010, and 2011 was actually the best year in 10 years for visitor arrivals to the Cayman Islands from a stayover perspective. Mm-hmm. And now in 2012, up through July, we're actually up 3.5% over last year, which once again was the best year in 10 years. So a lot of times people have a perception that, stayover visitation isn't doing that well. That's an incorrect assumption when you actually go by the numbers, and that's how, that's been the actual benchmark that's been used for the last 15 to 20 years. And in the last decade, 2011 was actually the best year. So I just want to get some of those statistics out there so that persons can actually understand that we are doing quite well from a stayover visitor standpoint. Going into your point in regards to younger Caymanians and Caymanians in general in the tourism industry, and I'll take off my director of tourism hat and put on my sociology hat.
Right.
In that, what happens as you grow as a nation and you have a lot of Caymanians that used to be in the tourism industry, and you always want your kids to do, I hate to use this word, but to do better than you. Right? So just from a sociologist standpoint, I'm thinking what happened was that there was a little bit of a change in that persons who, it's hard work at times in the tourism industry, who worked hard in the tourism industry, got their kids educated. There was a little bit of a lack of education to say that you can still be very successful and work in the tourism industry. So kids started to be pushed to other industries, whether it was finance, whether it's being lawyers, whether it was doing a managerial job outside of the tourism industry. And I think we've actually come full circle where the education's out there now. There are a lot of opportunities out there now. And the kids are actually seeing this opportunity, and it's up to the Department of Tourism and the private sector, one, to get the education out there that you can have a meaningful and exceptional career, not just a job, in the tourism industry, and tooling and training them to come into the tourism industry and to be successful in the tourism industry. So not only do you have to be a part of the hospitality-based types of services, whether it's a waiter, bartender, chef, but you can also go and get your marketing degree and be a marketing manager within the hotel, or even if you're in finance, guess what? Somebody has to count all that money. So
that's right, exactly.
So it's just looking at it differently, and we have an apprenticeship program. But one thing that's very exciting is that there is a new hospitality advisory council, which includes many of the GMs from the hotels, includes many of the top restaurateurs and persons in management positions or owners within the water sports industry, for instance. And what we're actually looking at is from start to finish, getting the education out there. what types of programs are going to set up. One for those that may not be academically inclined but have the personalities to be in tourism, to train them that they can come after a year or two and get a job in these establishments, and also those that are academically inclined to put them through a track where they can get their hospitality degrees. They can also get the training along with it, because it doesn't help if you just have the degree and no experience. And because we have the movers and shakers involved at the very beginning, they're also setting the framework that after the training occurs, these two different persons who take two different types of training can come back to the Cayman Islands, or can work their way through the Cayman Islands and still be successful and get a position within the tourism sector and be successful. And then we can put those persons forward to sell it to the youth of the Cayman Islands to say, guess what? You can be a chef. You can actually
and make a lot of money.
And make a lot of money and eventually be a GM, for instance. And it's also the education components. And I know a lot of times when you look at persons, you want to see somebody who is from the Cayman Islands to know that you too can do it. And one thing that I've found is that a lot of times when we're looking around at GMs, for instance, the persons aren't from Cayman, so they don't look like us. And kids can't speak to their parents, and their parents can't say, well, actually he started from the bottom because I used to play football with him back in primary school. They can't have those types of conversations. So what we're also looking to do is to take those GMs who actually started as the bellboy, started washing dishes, to go in and say, guess what, this is where I started, and it took me 15 or 20 years, but this is where I am now, and you also can do it. And when we get those 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 Caymanians who are eventually in those positions, then we can put them forward. But until that time, let's use the talents that we have on island to do that selling for us.
Right. Well, we've always heard over the years, why don't we open up a hospitality school? And really, it's easier said than done. Speaking from personal experience and having been, a flight attendant and a first front desk, supervisor at a hotel here and working in a condominium, really and truly on-the-job experience is the best experience that you can get when it comes to certain industries. And I believe personally that hospitality is one of those industries, because it really, if you're going to be on the front line, you have to have a personality first, right?
You most definitely.
And we're known for our hospitality and our personalities.
And it's funny that you mentioned a hospitality school, because what the council is actually doing is looking short, medium, and long term, and how we can get the persons trained in the short term, and of course give them the theoretical training that they need at the UCCI, but also look at the practical and actually going and having even a rotation between properties and restaurants, and depending on the length of the program that's currently being developed, whatever product actually comes out at end will be perfect for those private sector partners, because they actually had a stake in saying, this is what I need, so we need to develop these types of competencies.
All right.
So once they graduate, of course I'm going to jump at the opportunity to hire persons that have gone through a program that gives us exactly what we need.
Well, it sounds wonderful, Shomari, and I'm sure our listeners out there are being inspired and educated, finding out all of this information and getting this insight into exactly what the future holds for the Cayman Islands Society. All right, we're going to take a break right now and talk with the nation. We'll be back with you shortly.
The door